raise your hand if you have ever, you know, felt anxious about money, grew up poor, have trauma around money, things that most people have. um, I just wanted to talk a little bit about today. Talk a little bit today about, just what I've learned in my life so far about making money, and sort of trying to aid myself in this money anxiety spiral that I've found myself in for most of my life. If you don't know, this is my vlogging channel that I just talk about random stuff in one take. So here we are, just gonna talk about it. Don't mind me, I'm sweating. Every time I turn on these lights, I start sweating. Or it could be the booze. I don't know. Anyway, back to the point. Yeah, man, I don't know. I feel like I've always had these problems where, I get worried about money and the lack of things that I have or have security over, and how sort of unpredictable life is kind of constantly, right? And surprisingly, I mean, in theory, surprisingly, but it's also kind of unsurprising. I, then turn to coping with that in some way. And often, for me especially, that winds up being like buying food or buying treats, buying snacks, and buying drinks and things like that. And, you, you know, as you can see, that's not exactly ideal to, um, you know, fixing any kind of lack of money problem, because then I'm just spending money on things I don't need to cope with the fact that I don't have enough money, or things like that. Now, that might sound familiar for you, as you also try to find ways to cope with your anxieties and your stresses and your worries and things like that, because I think we all kind of have those copes, that ways of coping that often make us feel better in the moment, but in the long term it's like, fuck, man, why did I just spend 400 extra dollars on food this month when I didn't need to? I mean, certainly, literally I could get really good at cooking cheap food at home and save a bunch more money. If I was so worried about money, why don't I just do that? And that's a great question, because why don't I do that? And I think there's a lot of deeply embedded psychological questions about where that comes from, what that stems from, how serious these problems are, blah, blah, blah. I mean, all of us, we all have our traumas and our things that we all work through and work with. Regardless of their impact on our lives, we continue on. So yeah. One of the things that I wanted to talk about today was some experiments that you could enlist in your life if you wanted to give some of your anxiety a bit of a break in its hold on your psyche. If you want to just show yourself, hey, maybe this isn't so bad. you know um I don't know. Essentially, the past handful of years, I'm a multimedia artist. I'm a graphic designer at work. I got promoted to a project manager because I kind of just stuck my hands in every pot that I could. And that worked well because we're a small company. So I had a bigger, breadth of influence on upper management and things like that. So it made it easier. I mean, that's not going to apply to everyone's situation, but things like that, for example, I mean, sort of going out of your way to try new things at work, or, figure out where you can be more helpful, can definitely help in expediting your trajectory. And of course, that's not guaranteed in any regard. That is literally a combination of luck and, sort of preparedness, really. It's not going to just be sort of going to work every time, but it worked for me. It helped make me realize that I am pretty adaptable to a lot of situations and a lot of problems and how to solve those problems. So yeah, I mean, definitely one of them would be just, try different things at work, see where else you can help at work. Especially, I mean, if you're a regular, 9 to 5 kind of person, which most of us are, um, it's a good place to start. Um, Next would be, I guess, freelancing, and obviously there are industries and skills that are more marketable than others when it comes to finding freelance work. Um, but again, it is generally experimental. It's not. I'm not suggesting to change your entire life to sort of, uh, you know, work on these anxieties. I would say, I mean, first and foremost, if you really want to dive into these problems, I would say therapy is a good option if you have access to that, if you have easy access to that. Um, Definitely make sure that if you have health insurance through your work, to double check your health insurance plan and see what kind of therapy is included in your health insurance, because sometimes that stuff can be pretty cheap or way cheaper than you expected, or there can be free counseling and things like that. So I would definitely look into that if I were you and you have that, because yeah, it's a great option to start there if you really are very, very anxious about money, and perhaps have long seated trauma with money, because there's a lot of stuff that, I mean, we just can't do on our own. I mean, we have to get help from somewhere else, and I don't think that money is any different, just because it's usually so independently brought about, right? So yeah. Anyway, freelancing. There are probably a lot more places that you can freelance than you think. I mean, I don't mean to continue on a. I don't mean to push like a toxic kind of hustle culture thing, because I totally, totally understand all of that is, it's a very complicated thing. Um, and some people enjoy working than others, and I think that's completely valid. I don't think we're meant to be. I personally don't believe that humans are meant to just work all the time, but I mean, at the same time, we are simply put into this situation. We don't exactly have tons of control over the world, the world that we live in. So, it's all about just trying to make the best with what we can. Um, and yeah, so not to say that I want you to try to figure out how to monetize all of your hobbies, but if there is a hobby or an interest that you believe could be monetizable, then I would say go for it, even just as an experiment, And let's say you like knitting things, knit a few things, throw it on Etsy, post about it on Instagram, do a couple things, see about making a couple sales, and see how you feel about that. I mean, yeah, it's gonna feel good, but I mean, knowing that you have that in your back pocket if you needed to use it is it provides another layer of security. And I think that's kind of the whole thing with being a 9 to 5 employee, being a full-time employee of a company, is because it feels like we're never really secure. I mean, even though we have a secure job and everything, I mean, it's never guaranteed to remain a secure job. I mean, we can do everything in our power to try to make it guaranteed, but at the end of the day, it never is. And I think that's the case with every money-making avenue that you can think of. None of it is guaranteed. And recognizing that we have sort of a portfolio or a, carousel of options when it comes to making money, I think that's very valuable to the human psyche, even if it is just a little reminder, not necessarily trying to kill ourselves over making a few extra bucks for whatever. I mean, I don't think that working 80 hours a day 80 hours a week is going to guarantee you anything. I don't think if you go out of your way to just work a shit ton in the hopes that like one day, it'll all work out, it doesn't always work, So I think it is recognizing the market and your skills and how they fit into them, and how you can employ yourself to be of help to other people or provide products or services, and like making money off of that. I mean, there's a lot of stuff out there that you can make money off of, as I'm sure you've probably seen in many capacities. And I'm not saying you have to go do that all the time, but physically showing yourself that you could possibly help. I don't know. It's definitely helped me. I mean, I I haven't made a ton of money off of freelancing or anything. I mean, it's not it's a fun thing to do, I guess. It's an idea. It's a potentiality of being worthwhile, and so I go after it and I experiment around with it. I see what I can do, what I can't do, and what sort of things I can market myself to do. Does this make sense? Is this making sense? I don't know. So yeah, I would say definitely consider trying to freelance, perhaps. Think about the skills that you apply at work, what you're good at, what you enjoy doing, and figure out how that could be freelance, how you could help someone else, either an independent person or another company, do something like that. There's plenty of content online about, finding different types of freelance work to do and finding a niche and all those kinds of things. I did recently find a fantastic YouTuber who I very much enjoyed her content. Her name on YouTube is Deya, Deya. I'll put a link in the description to her content, and she has some really great stuff on like just starting out on freelancing. So if it's something that you've ever been partially interested in, I would definitely recommend it, just to sort of dip your fingers in there and see how you feel about it, because yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I don't believe everyone needs to go after extra opportunities. I mean, there's certainly going to be people out there who are money anxious but don't want to do anything more outside of their 40 hour a week work job, and I think that's perfectly valid, perfectly fine. And I don't think that there is really any perfect solution to money anxiety outside of regular anxiety, outside of thwarting regular anxiety. I mean, make a savings account, add a little bit of money every paycheck, sort of thing. I mean, obviously that kind of stuff helps, but even then, like, it's a scary world to exist in, and so many things could go wrong at any point in time, and it's like, how do we be prepared for all that? And I think that the reality is that we can't, and we have to realize that as much as we try to go out of our way to prepare ourselves for any potential eventuality, like, there's gonna be things that come up in the process down the road that are gonna really throw us on our ass, and that's just a part of life. There's nothing that can really be done about that. But I think that's also where the value of doing some experiments like this and recognizing that you can make more money should you need it is valuable, because it's like, sure, I might not have the money now, I might not have the money when I need it, but I can make it. I can get it. And figuring out what skills you have that are marketable and in demand and valuable. I mean, it's empowering. It's not so simply, oh, well, there's so many people out there who already do this thing, and it's like, well, yeah, but I mean, that's how it works for everything, right? I mean, there's a big market for things, for certain services and certain skills, for a reason, because there is a lot of demand for them. and, figuring out where your skills or where your interests slot into that, because you can always learn new things. That's the fantastic thing about the internet and YouTube is that you can go out and you can learn new things whenever you want to. Now, I'm no fucking perfect person when it comes to going to learn things, because I struggle enough finishing the fucking the donut tutorial for Blender. but yeah, there's a lot of fantastic content on the internet that you can learn from for free, and I think that's great. I think it's wonderful that we all have access to so many tools for free, and I think there's comfort that we can find in realizing that there are so many opportunities out there in the world outside of what we have right now, outside of what our little bubble of our mind has, baked as the world, right? As our potential, as our opportunities, because there's so much out there. And I think that's the point, is reminding ourselves of that. That's what these experiments are for. Is just reminding ourselves. Heck, if you wanted to, you could simply go on to Indeed, go on to ZipRecruiter, look for jobs that you want to work in, you already have experience in, whatever. Pretend like you are looking for a new job. Apply to jobs, go on interviews, see if you get selected. At the least, it's good practice. It's good practice doing interviews and seeing how they go. And yeah. It's definitely reassuring to go through a whole interview process, be selected, and be like, sorry, not right now. I don't know. It's good to remain out there just in case you want to brush up on your interview skills, because interviews suck, but they're also fun sometimes. So you never know. You might find the new opportunity you're looking for. Anyway, that is the end of that topic. Usually what I do in my process here is I'll talk about a topic for a while and then switch to more personal stuff at the end here. Last video, I talked about wanting to sell my multimedia services, graphic design, video editing, creative consultation, blah blah blah, things like that, to people, and try to make some extra freelance money, especially since I lost my they disappeared. My main client disappeared. So yeah, that was where we were at last time. I've pitched it to, I think, six people who are basically already warm in my hemisphere. They weren't just like random people that I picked. Like I picked like people I already know, and things like people I've already worked with, or people that I know, are close enough in some capacity, friends and colleagues, essentially, which is a great place to start with reaching out to potential clients, customers, friends and family, colleagues, acquaintances. Yeah. So I reached out to them because really all it comes down to is pitching, pitching over and over and over. You can do all the preparation you want, but if you don't pitch, you're not going to make any sales or whatever. Anyway, so I converted one of those people. Two more that are basically in the bag. The second one's like almost guaranteed in the bag, and the third one's like mostly guaranteed in the bag. So pretty good progress so far. I've got a handful more potential ones I need to reach out to. I'm just not trying to go overboard at the moment, so we'll see trying to see how everything shakes out. I don't want to overwhelm myself. Past few videos I've also been talking about burnout and coming back from it, so I'm trying not to overdo myself too much, because that's also important, is recognizing balance, finding balance. And trust me, these experiments are not worth losing your balance over. Money sucks that way. It takes so much time to make it sometimes, unless you get lucky, or you just really hit it off doing something, selling a product that does really well, finding a gap in the market. But that shit's hard. I don't know. Like, I sit here and I'm like, what could I sell? you know, most everything I sell is like time based. Like, I have to invest my time to make something back for it. I mean, the concept of selling something, like making something once and then selling it, it's a whole different game. So, yeah, it's crazy out here. I don't, I don't know. I mean, that's the whole thing. I'm just sharing my thoughts about this because it's making freelance income, having made freelance income, has been very valuable to me personally. I've enjoyed it. It's helped me feel more secure in my money that I do have. It's helped me fund a savings account, which has been great. But also, like, it's nice to know that, like, hey, if I needed like money, like, I could just go and try to get it. I have tools, I have skills, I have the experience to do that. And I think that's valuable. I think it's valuable to teach yourself that, to show yourself that you can do that. So that's the point of this video. I've been sweating this whole fucking time. I can't. Not binge drinking has been going great. It'll be 2 months and 5 days of not binge drinking. The most I've had still, I think, in one day is like 3 drinks. This was a Cosmo, which I make, and I've also been drinking ciders, which are nice. I got a hangover from 2 ciders last weekend. That was shocking. I was like, are you for real? Because that was like part of the reason I stopped drinking so much, was because I started getting hangovers, like bad hangovers. And, as a lot of people say, like, your hangovers get worse as you get older, things like that. So I didn't used to get hangovers at all. So I've been drinking constantly for years. But they started getting bad. So I was like, okay, it's time to stop drinking so much. And, like, yeah, it's been almost 2 months of, like, not binge drinking once. And I'm getting a hangover from 2 fucking ciders. It's crazy. Anyway, I hope you found some value out of this video. Hopefully it wasn't too preachy, too, I don't know, icky. I'm trying not to be icky. Kind of just speaking off the cuff, though. Been brewing on it for a couple days. Well, like a week or so, about this concept, this idea, talking about it with you. Yeah, I just kind of wrote down some thoughts. I rarely write down thoughts for these things, but I did real quick. So, that's what I wanted to share. It's a tough world. It's a real tough world, especially for a designer. Just reading this Reddit thread of like designers lamenting about the industry and like how pay is going down so dramatically and it's becoming a much less valuable skill. And it's true, and it's sad, but such is life. That's why continuing to learn new things is important, even though it fucking sucks. I mean, I enjoy learning to a good degree, but it's like, oh my god, it's so much work. It is so much work, and it takes so much time. Lord. Anyway, I won't drag on for too long. Yeah, I guess let me know your thoughts if you have any thoughts on this. I will talk to you later. I'm trying to make more of these videos because it's been a dry year so far, and it was a dry end of last year, but we'll see. I'm getting back into the groove. I'm trying to do stuff. It's just, I'm also trying not to fucking get back to burnout, so I'm trying to be careful so I don't shut down again. We're not meant to be machines, let me tell you that. I'll tell you that. Alright, talk to you later. Have a good one. Goodbye.